Alrighty, well, it's 9 o'clock. We'll bring this meeting to order this morning on June 9th of this year. So as you're able, please stand and we'll sing the national anthem.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Good morning. As we gather, we recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The Township of Southgate is part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand River, the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Haudenosaunee, and the Saugeen Métis. The land that surrounds us is part of who we are as it reflects our histories. May we live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples.
Thank you, Barb. Madam Clerk, is anyone registered for open forum? No, I see not. Confirmation of the agenda as presented. Jim will move that. Martin will second. All in favor? That is carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest related to any item on today's agenda? Not seeing any. If one does arise during the course of the meeting, you can declare it at any time. Delegations and presentations. We have KPMG here this morning to present the audit findings report. I'll ask for a motion to receive the presentation. Barb will move that. Jason will second. Taylor, if you want to introduce this report, please.
Yep, I will. Okay. Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to give a bit of a spiel about internal staff, and then I'll give it off to Brendan, and then a few things that we'll note throughout the financial statements so that council has a better scope of what's kind of going on with these. So first, I wanted to thank all involved, both internal at the township and at KPMG, for getting through this 2024 audit. The preparation and completion of this audit is an accomplishment and brings us that much closer to current in terms of audited financial statements. I hope that KPMG can agree that the township has made great strides through the last 3 audits with them to be more efficient and prepared for the requests. Ultimately, and hopefully they agree, we have improved as clients year over year. These relationships can be inherently hard to mesh early on as we acquaint ourselves with each other, but I believe we have a stronger understanding on both sides of the fence, and this has helped us align and got us here today. No doubt, council and staff are aware this completion means that any provincial funding that has been withheld for non-compliance will now be released upon completion of the FIR, which I hope to do over the next several weeks while preparing also for the 2025 audit. So I haven't given myself a hard deadline on that because I do want to get some sleep over the next few weeks. I also wanted to thank all staff involved. The quick responses, thoughtful controls put in place, and process improvements have made the audit smoother than the previous, and I see great strides internally. Through 2024, the finance department continued to deal with instability in terms of staff, but I believe we have a strong team now, and my vision for where I see the department is truly coming together, and I'm proud of everything that has been accomplished. So now for the financial statements. As council and public may remember, we budget operating and capital spending for the tax levy to bring in a 0 net surplus or deficit, meaning we aren't, nor are we allowed to, through legislation, budget for a loss or a gain in any year. In saying that, you will notice throughout the financials that there is a significant accumulated surplus for the year, being 3.4 million versus the 11.7 million that was presented in the 2023 statements. I ask you to keep this in mind, that this represents the difference between how municipalities are run on a day-to-day basis versus how the financial statements need to be presented and represented in accordance with PSAB, which is the accounting standards for public entities. This does not represent a true revenue on a cash basis. So any gain that we made in the previous year has already been reflected in the budget and brought the taxation down. So in my report, I do have 7.7 million as the surplus. As noted, that was the budgeted surplus. So I'm bringing like a friendly amendment when I'll present my report, but it is 3 million is the surplus presented in the statements. So major items included in this surplus that are non-cash related, the recognition of development charges revenue. This is the major one that comes into play every year. So development charges are not recognized when the cash comes in. They are recognized when we put a project into service and when we fund that. So that creates a surplus in the statements. The inflow of finance for capital projects year over year. Depreciation is also a non-cash entry, and then gains on sales or disposals of assets also include in that surplus. I do have one uncorrected misstatement that Brendan and I talked about that we decided would go uncorrected in the statements. This is related to investment income. So it's $176,000. This is just because we've had year over year corrections going on. So 176 was going to be an increase to interest income. It wasn't reasonable compared to the interest rate that we got in the year, but this is correcting. I mean, we're going back 10 years and correcting mistakes. So it does look like a big swing, but we decided ultimately to not correct it. But still it's flagged since it's over the $25,000 threshold. So now if you're good, Brendan, I'll introduce you. So Brendan Hall from KPMG will take over.
Welcome, Mr. Hall.
Thank you.
The floor is yours, sir.
All right, just make sure I can see how we're driving here, so. Whoops, okay. Arrow to the right to go ahead or arrow down? Nope. Plus button? Nope.
Is it on?
Okay, I'm gonna try now. Yep, that, okay, perfect. All right, so my name, thank you, Taylor, for the introduction. We've completed our audit. We're at what I would say is the 97-98% done standpoint. There's a few administrative elements that happen subsequent to our meeting with this group, but we are in a position to issue a clean, unmodified audit opinion. So that's the gold standard. That's what this group's looking for. That is the ultimate kind of conclusion of us being able to complete the audit, gain the evidence, gain the substantive support over what has been reflected in Southgate's financial statements. So what we'll do today is I'll walk through what we refer to as our audit findings report. That's going to touch on the key areas where our team spent time, some of the key procedures that we executed to get to where we're at today, and touch on really where we think the focus areas and the risks reside in a municipal audit. Taylor indicated correctly that these statements will differ from what's presented throughout the year when you're looking at things from a municipal budget standpoint. So public sector accounting standards, PSAB or PSAS, is what basically the rule book that you're required to follow for the external statements that get issued. And some of those there are some large differences from an accrual account concept in comparison to how things are budgeted for. So Taylor indicated many of them. I think capital assets is a very large one, right? So we have this concept in accounting that we expense capital assets on an estimated useful life. So if you go put a $10 million bridge in, and that's going to last 20 years, that cost flows through these PSAB statements over its estimated useful life. And that differs very significantly from how things are budgeted for. So we'll walk through. Happy to take questions as I'm speaking to things, but please stop me if there's any questions. It looks like our slides are getting cut off a little bit there. I can go with that and improvise if needed. That looks better. Thank you very much. So this is our summary, and I'll get into the details, but again, Taylor indicated quite correctly, we have one difference that's uncorrected, really pertains to getting interest allocated to the reserves as accurate as possible, stems from a historical shortfall of interest that was allocated to reserves. Given it's not material, we would never suggest you go back and restate a prior period financial statement. So what Taylor has done is correct for that through fiscal 2025. And so that creates a little noise in the 2025 statements, but gets us to an accurate point as of the balance sheet date, which is, 2024, December 31st, 2024. So we have one uncorrected difference, but it's to get the balance sheet correct as at December 31st, 2024. And given it's not material, we concurred that treatment was logical and made appropriate sense. So every audit in Canada is conducted with a concept of materiality. Materiality is our guiding star through the performance of the audit. What we are working to do is to gather sufficient audit support to ensure that the financial statements are free from material error. So we're not doing our work to ensure that the statements are accurate to within $1 or $2. That's not the level of precision. We'd be here for 10 years if that's what we were doing it. But materiality is based on the size and the scope and the users of the financial statements. And so for a public sector entity, we look to revenues as a benchmark for the entity's size and scope. For profit-oriented entities, it's typically based on your net income. But given that this organization is not striving to obviously generate a positive net income, the standards say we look to revenue, but we use a lower percentage benchmark. So our materiality for the current year's audit was $500,000, and any difference that we identify in excess of 5% of that is communicated to this group. And so that is the one difference that Taylor referred to. For uncorrected differences. We do have some correcting entries that we recorded working with the finance team, but we, again, have only the one uncorrected item. We are required to communicate to this group that the finance team does use what we refer to as management specialists for estimating and modeling the costs associated with the asset retirement obligation. So you'll recall a couple of years ago, we were talking a lot about asset retirement obligations. It was a new accounting standard. It was some heavy lifting of the finance team to get that onto the books of the entity. And as a very brief reminder, the theory there is that when you go to deal with those asset retirements, you won't have an income statement or a P&L hit because you've estimated the cost. There's going to be a marginal true up, right? But the concept is you've taken a step as an organization, because you're required to under PSAB, to say, what are we going to incur from a cost standpoint to remediate those assets? It's been present valued. So if it's 10 years from now, there's a concept of discounting that back. But when you go to remediate those items, there should be very little impact to your statement of operations. So in the current year, really the impact in the financial statements is the passage of time. So that's referred to as accretion, indicating that if you were to resolve this cost remediation today, it's probably, an inflationary element more expensive than it was last year. So not a large area of the audit for the current year, really a continuation of what was relatively a heavy lift in standards in the previous financial statements. So when we look at the consolidated, and that's important as well, the consolidated financial statements of Southgate, we refer to it on kind of our team as the main entity, but you do have the library that consolidates into the financial statements. It represents a relatively immaterial piece of the consolidated financial statements. Our focus, all of our substantive work is on what we refer to as the main entity. If there were other entities that were material, we would basically be executing almost mini audits to gather our support for the whole audit. But here we gather all of our evidence over the core operations of the entity. So status, again, we're at the completion standpoint, a few administrative pieces, completing our discussions today, and then gathering the evidence of council's approval of the financial statements to be in a position to issue our auditor's report. We'll now walk through areas of audit focus. Every audit in Canada is required to have a consideration that management of the finance team is in a position where they have an ability to override controls if they wish to accomplish certain desires. This tends to be a heightened risk in profit-oriented entities where there may be earnings targets, stock compensation, management bonuses, that sort of thing, but there's no way to rebut that risk in any audit we do. So we are required to perform certain procedures on every audit that we do in Canada. And what that heavily boils down to is looking at what we refer to as some journal entry routines. So the audit that we do in Canada is very substantive. We're looking at third-party invoices. We're confirming with banks. We're confirming with the institutions that have issued your debt. However, we can't not look at this possibility that there's override happening in the general ledger. So what we have is digital tools that will actually ingest all of the journal entry transactions that the organization has recorded for the whole year. And it goes through and it looks at certain risk parameters. So it will look, and these tools are evolving literally by the weeks and months with AI and technology, and that's very different than how it was done 20 years ago. But what it will do is it will look at risk ratings with respect to journal entries. So account pairings means, okay, for a revenue transaction, we often have an AR as the other side. If we had a capital asset acquisition with revenue recorded on the other side, that would on an initial surface seem unusual, and that would get flagged, and we would dig in to understand, is there actually business merit for that transaction. So through the performance of our procedures and through using those digital tools, we did not identify any instances of unusual journal entries being recorded, which is what we would hope to see. If we now talk, so we've talked about asset retirement obligations. I'm not going to go kind of further into detail here, but it is here to flag that really that topic will continue to exist in your financial statements until those assets are remediated. So you expect to see that financial statement caption in your financial statements. Obligatory reserve fund, development charges being a huge piece of that is a large focus area for our team. So I like to use some casual language when I'm talking about DCs. You guys live and breathe DCs, but we look at it from a flow, right? So there's kind of the inflows of DCs, and then there's also the outflows. And so we do work on both sides, really from a continuity standpoint to get comfort on what the ending obligatory reserve number should be. So in terms of work on the DCs coming in, we're testing to third-party source documentation, cash receipt of those development charges. As Taylor indicated, the revenue recognition from a PSAB standpoint, the revenue doesn't flow through your statement of operations or your P&L in common language until you execute a project that's DC eligible. So for the DC revenue that's been recorded in these PSAB financial statements, our team is doing a host of tests, but one of the first ones is has there been a capital expenditure in the current year? So that kind of warrants, is it eligible out of the gate? But secondly, we got to make sure that that project is approved in the DC study and it's DC eligible for the funding. So doing work on kind of both sides of the flow of that transaction. And we understand that with the passing of certain bills and regulations, like that DC topic is probably going to slow down a little bit in terms of the revenue right? Because there's going to be some timing differences in when DC revenue can be realized. So that's not an impact on your 2024 statements, but something to kind of make sure you're aware of when you're evaluating kind of future financial statements. Tangible capital assets, there's no surprise. If you look at your financial statements, that is a huge asset number on your books, common across all municipalities. Again, very similar approach to the DCs. We're looking at it from a continuity standpoint. So there's a risk that Southgate capitalizes something that is not capital, like a repair, a maintenance, something that doesn't provide a multi-year benefit. There's a risk that gets capitalized. So we're testing additions on a sample basis using statistical samples. So of course, we're not looking at every single addition, but we're using statistical evidence to sample additions, ensuring that what has been capitalized is indicative of something that's a multi-year benefit. And if it's a multi-year benefit, it gets capitalized and then it will get amortized through your statement of operations. So that expense hits the P&L over time. The other kind of inverse way that we do a test is seeing what is being expensed through repair and maintenance accounts and making sure that there's no indication of that was a building, that was a road, that was something that had a long-term benefit that should have been capitalized. So there's two procedures kind of looking directionally in opposite ways to ensure both figures are accurate. Cash, very easy area to audit, but you have a lot of it. So it's very material. So we communicate as the audit firm directly with the bank. There's online platforms. We get management's approval to do that correspondence. But we communicate directly with the bank, and the bank communicates back to us in letter form what the balances are in your various bank accounts, in addition to a very similar process for the investments. But what we're doing there is ensuring that we have third-party confirmation of what has been recorded in the general ledger. What is recorded in the general ledger will not equal exactly what comes back on the confirmation, because there's a concept of reconciling items. So if you've written checks, but the recipients haven't cashed those checks, your balance in the GL is going to be a bit lower. So we do testing on those reconciling items to ensure that what is in the GL is accurate, but our starting point is that confirmation process with the third-party institutions. No issues. We had one correcting entry that we had to address, but no issues in terms of what is reflected in the financial statements. Taxation and grant revenues, again, different substantive procedures here that we perform. For grant revenues, it's very much vouching to agreements, looking at cash transactions, ensuring that those grants are recorded in the appropriate period. Some grants will have stipulations, right? You have to do, as a municipality, you have some homework to do before you earn that grant. You have to construct something or you have to run a program. We're ensuring that the grant revenue is recorded in the accurate period. If it's unconditional and there are no restrictions, okay, you get the cash in 2024, revenue in 2024, but not all of them go like that. So we document our testing to ensure that it is recorded in the correct period. For taxation revenue, we do what's referred to as an analytical procedure, a substantive analytical procedure. So we will obtain the MPAC assessment rates, the bylaw enacted tax rates. We will do what we refer to as an expectation on what taxation revenue should be recorded in the GL and investigate any differences. No issues were noted in this regard. So we have a quiet year from accounting standards standpoint. So, there was some modifications in the revenue standard, nothing earth shattering. It really gave more explicit examples of when revenue would be recorded for certain types of grants. But there was no new accounting policies like there was with respect to asset retirement obligations. A much lighter lift in the current year for accounting standards. There are exposure drafts. So exposure drafts indicate that there are changes that the accounting standard setting boards are evaluating. And so if you looked at your PSAB financial statements compared to those in kind of the private space, you will notice the form and shape of the balance sheet looks a little different. There is an expectation that there are going to be some changes coming in future years that will change the scope of what the balance sheet looks like, and it will look a little bit more like what your profit-oriented businesses present. So nothing immediate in the pipeline, but certainly some discussions, which always mean that changes are coming. It's just a matter of time. So I won't walk through our appendices, but what I will say is, we've worked with Southgate for a couple of years now, and I would agree with Taylor's comments. We've noticed, improvement in what we are receiving in terms of the initial GL, the initial trial balance, things rapidly coming to us. So I think that relationship has certainly strengthened over the past few years. And I think we're seeing too the benefit of consistency in the treasurer role, right? In some of our earlier years, there was quite a bit of turnover. And so I think having that stability is helping us get through our work in a more timely fashion. So we're going to be working starting on the 2025 audit in the coming weeks and months. So if there's any questions, happy to take those at this point in time.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments? I would just say to Taylor, thank you very much for your efforts, and thank you, sir, for your efforts.
Thank you.
So the question has been called. All those in favor to receive, Joan, you have a question? Go ahead, please.
Sorry.
No.
Just a quick question, Taylor, just to the investment income, you said that you guys would not correct the mistakes. Can you just explain a little bit why?
So KPMG views it as a mistake in the way that, so say the average interest rate for the year that we received was 5%. But when they calculate what our GL is showing 6%. Well, we're saying that's like a misstatement because it doesn't really make sense compared to what we received. But that's because historically, we did not correctly do the transfers back and forth bank to bank for DC Bank versus main entity bank. So there is some interest fluctuation there. So we wouldn't, like, I'm saying the DCs are correct. KPMG is saying there's something weird here, but you're correcting historical. So we're just gonna agree to kind of disagree on it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Barb?
Thank you. It's a question through you that I ask every year. If there were any issues, concerns that were flagged by KPMG that would be addressed in the management letter that goes to management only, would KPMG be asking for a closed session to discuss those concerns?
Yeah, so if there were any concerns, like I'd be bringing that up in this report, whether it's verbally or there'd be sections in the report. So if we felt there were significant deficiencies, that would be in that report right there. We received full cooperation. Are there audit adjustments that are required to get the statements accurate? Yes. I think we're working collectively, on both sides of the fence to try and get fewer and fewer of those. But yeah, we have no concerns. But I'm happy to, if there's a requirement or a desire to have a closed session, some municipalities do that as part of this meeting. They'll say, hey, we want 5 minutes to ask questions. I don't have any concerns that I would flag, but if that's something you want to have in the future or arrange a call at any time, I'm happy to work through that. But we received great cooperation. If we didn't, I'd be making that well known.
Jason?
Taylor, you'd mentioned about the provincial funding that's been withheld. Is there any dollar figure on that roughly?
Oh, geez. So it's the OMPF funding that's been withheld. So our first and second quarter has been withheld. I believe it was 933,000 for the year. So probably around the 450 mark has been withheld in 2026.
Okay, any other questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor to receive the report? That is carried. Again, thank you very much, Mr. Hall.
Perfect.
Appreciate your efforts.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for having me up today.
You betcha.
I'll leave that on. Presumably that's fine.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to adoption of the minutes from May 20th council meeting and the closed session with the same date. Someone care to move, receive those? Martin and Joan will second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Reports of municipal officers, and as you might imagine, we're going to start with finance. So the first is the financial statements for 2024. Someone care to move to receive those? Jim, thank you. Seconded by Joan, thank you. Taylor, please.
Okay, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So obviously Brendan did not present the financial statements as they are, but they're attached to my report. So I'm just asking that council approve the statements as presented in the attachment for the report, and then as a friendly amendment in the financial and resource implications section. It says on a PSAB accounting basis for the year ended December 31, 2024, the annual surplus is 7,726,332. That's actually the budgeted annual surplus for the year. So that was an error on my part. So on page 7 of the financial statements, I should have grabbed the number, which is 3,417,977 would be the annual surplus for the year.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do we need a formal amendment to do that or no? Okay. Any questions for Taylor on the financial statements 2024? Not seeing any questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
Moving on to the annual treasurer's statement, development charges specifically. Someone care to move that, please? Barb will move that.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And Jim will second. Taylor, please.
Okay, so as promised, here are the development charges, the annual statement for the year 2024. So now that we have what I had to have assumed were approved statements at the time. So I went ahead and did the treasurer statement for 2024. So if council approves, I'll have this put on the website today, and then we'll be in compliance for that year as well.
Very good. Any questions? No questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Moving on to the planning department, we have a motion or a report here regarding the Edgewood Greens Phase 9 subdivision agreement report. Someone care to move that, please? Jim, thank you. Seconder, Martin, thank you. Ken. Sorry, Bill. Welcome, Bill.
Good
Good to see you.
morning. Hi, nice to see you, Mayor Mill, members of council. It's a pleasure to present this report to you today. This subdivision agreement is in part fulfilling the draft plan conditions for Edgewood Greens Phase 9. There's a phasing plan that is attached to the report. You can see where Phase 9 sits. I'm sure you know it very well. It's the extension of Van Dusen Ave, which is sort of more or less in place, and then the proposed new Wright Street. That's not White, but Wright. And it's basically an infilling project. It is zoned in a holding residential zone that allows single-family homes only. On the west side, I guess, of the proposed Wright Street, there are quite large residential lots, some of them having more than 14 meters of frontage. And then on the east side of the road, those lots are more traditionally sized, like the many of the lots in the area. The larger lots back onto blocks, which will be future linear parkland and drainage areas. The subdivision received draft plan approval, I believe, last time in and around June of 2023. We've been through it, the agreement with township staff, Triton's engineering group, Dustin and Ray, who have been primarily the ones that negotiate and prepare these agreements for you. And obviously legal counsel and staff have been through it. We believe it is compliant with the municipal engineering standards that have been adopted by the township. It is in the Planning Act. It's compliant with the provincial interests that are set in there. We don't believe the proposed development is premature. It makes efficient use of the water and sewer that will be in and around these lots. And we've gone through the agreement in the report in some detail, but it is quite long, but it is primarily boilerplate type information. So it would have the form of most of your subdivision agreements that you've signed with other landowners in the past. So staff, having reviewed this and considered the municipal engineering standards and the provisions of your official plan and Planning Act provincial policy, are recommending you consider a bylaw to execute it. The landowner is in the process of obtaining their security bond that's required under the agreement. And when that is secured, then the mayor and clerk would be authorized to sign this agreement. It's the first and main step in giving final approval so that the M plan can be registered. Director of Development Services will be responsible for coordinating all the other letters and approvals from the various agencies that come through. And finally, there is a final capacity allocation agreement that will be needed for this, and removal of the holding provision. And that bylaw will require some notice under the Planning Act, and that will come forward to you at a subsequent meeting. So the lands are still in a holding provision. And once that's removed and all the conditions of draft plan are met, and if the subdivision agreement is signed and security is provided, then they can proceed to building permit. That's all I have for this report at this time and happy to try and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Council have any questions? Comments? Barb?
Thank you. And I note that representatives from Signature Homes are in the audience today. Looking at the block plan with, through you to Bill, you said, so the homes or the lots, I'm going to say are 33 to 47 are the 14-meter lots.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
there, so convert that to old age real life is about 40, almost 46 feet.
Yeah, not quite 50. That's correct. Between 40
Right.
and 50 feet. Yep.
And you mentioned that the other lots on the east side are somewhat smaller and more standard to what is currently. But you didn't mention how much smaller. Is that 10 meters? Is it 12 meters?
Right. Those lots are 10 meters by typically 31 meters. So they exceed the minimum requirements that are in the site-specific zone that apply to this subdivision. And they are almost double the minimum lot size that the province is recommending. So they are smaller lots than the ones on the east side of the proposed Wright Street, but they do comply with zoning, and they are functional and usable, and they can be developed.
Understood. Understood, if I may.
Yeah, please.
So they back on, so we'll focus on lots 12 through 32. And they back on to existing homes, lots that have already been built and registered.
Yes.
Okay, yes. And so they match up with the boundaries or the lot lines that coincide with houses that have already been built on Russell Street.
Yes.
That answers one of my other questions. I guess I expressed my concern at the last meeting about what we've learned in the last 2 years, which, you know, painting rural Ontario with the urban brush that does not see the amount of snow accumulation that we have. And yes, you indicated, Bill, the province is looking to half the size again. It just doesn't work here. And I'm concerned about the placement of the homes. We already have parking issues. In the winter and actually all year round. We have snow placement issues. What can we require of the developer, the new developer? I mean, they can't be blamed for the lack of attention or movement of previous developers, but what can we do to alleviate future impact on our staff, on our ability for the residents to, place their snow? Because, we may never have another 2 years, but we had more accumulation this year than in a 10-year history. So we have to plan for the future. So I'm just asking, what flexibility do we have in approving this lot coverage?
Bill?
If I may, I guess the lots exceed the minimum set in the zoning bylaw already. That is under a holding provision, but the reason that a holding provision is used is so that developers are aware of the minimum lot standard that would be required in the area. So having achieved that and having them bring forward these lots that do meet those minimum requirements, there isn't a lot that you can do as a council. They will need to deal with the people who are purchasing their lots and in terms of situating them in accordance with the building setbacks that are required. A 31-meter deep lot is, 100 feet to maybe people my age is pretty standard. So as much as they're narrow, fairly narrow. They're about the size of a semi lot that we used to develop years ago. So in terms of depth, they're similar to others in the area, but they're 100 feet deep. So I believe that there's room to put a house and still maintain proper snow removal, setbacks, parked cars, attached garages. We did, council did approve a zoning amendment that for residential 1 zones, which is the originating zone, does require a attached garage for building from one side of the lot to the other. That never used to be the case in the R1 zone. So if these lots have minimum interior yards, which is, I believe, 1 meter or roughly, then they must have an attached garage as well. So that will help. I don't know if any home was ever built without an attached garage in that entire subdivision, but those provisions that council took a year or 2 ago will certainly help the situation. And finally, there is provision in the subdivision agreement for drainage easements behind those lots that front on Russell Street and on the lots that are subject to to this subdivision agreement. And that will allow for surface water to be moved from the back of those lots out to the front. So by signing this agreement and having the infrastructure proceed, there are certain benefits to the drainage of the whole area. And but as far as requiring them to have a larger lot size, that's pretty much been set when that R1 zoning, R1378 or whatever the number is, was approved several years ago. So having met that, I don't know that there's any way that you could make them enlarge the lots or reduce the number at this point in time. But there are provisions in the agreement to deal with drainage, and they are sufficiently deep, I believe, to warrant or allow a house to be situated on there without having to creep right up to the front lot line. So and also, again, they are required to have an attached garage or carport. So I think that will help the situation, but in times of snow, and we've all seen over the years, it can be very challenging.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bill. Any other questions, comments? Joan, please.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh. Let me go back to where I was. Bill said something about purchasing, people who are purchasing, and that just sparked a question. I know these are all single family home, and I might be way ahead, but I would just like to ask, what are the starting costs of these houses since the touch and who are purchasing? And I have a second part, but what is starting?
Bill, do you have any notion of what the
I do
price
not.
point might be?
I do not, Mayor Milne.
Okay. Oh, Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Council can waive procedure and allow
Yep.
signature communities to speak should they wish. If there is direct questions like that they may be able to answer.
Well, I don't want to stray way off from where the,
That's true, yeah.
Okay.
maybe Joan, ask her, if we had a number of questions, maybe we could do that, or if somebody wants to propose it, by all means, we'll entertain it, but at this point, oh, Ken?
Your worship, just to bring council back to when signature presented last council meeting. If I recall, Councillor John, you actually did ask that question last week, and as I recall, signature didn't know the answer. They haven't settled on it. So I'm not sure if they want to elaborate. I'd leave that to council, but I'm just recalling what we heard last council in our last episode.
You have another question, Joan?
Oh,
Or-
Yeah, just wanted to touch a little bit on parking, as Deputy Mayor spoke about that. We already have parking issues on Russell, Wary. We can't even go through there because there are cars on both sides of the street. So I think that is something that you guys will also need to pay a little bit more attention to. It's not a question, it's a comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joan. Good point. Jason, you had a question or?
I'm not sure if this is more to the planning department. We've had this trouble in the past. Okay, we know about the snow trouble. So we're at the position now, we've had this trouble with development before. As far as I'm concerned, council should be dictating to the builders what we want, what size of lots we want. I know the government wants all the provincial government I'm just, as planners, we have the report in one of John's report, how much extra snow removal it costs. So we add that every year. I just don't know why we make these small lots in an area like this. Maybe it's too simple of a question, but do you know what I'm saying, Ken? Why? We're in the driver, we should be in the driver's seat saying what we want before this subdivision goes in. So this is the time to do it rather than make these small lots and then we spend 200,000 a year to move snow. I know we've had a lot of snow this last 2 years, but that's just usually how it is up here. So
Ken, if you want to respond, please.
So through your worship, I take your comments and the deputy mayors. I would say that actually the time to have made that decision was back when the zoning bylaw for this area was being contemplated. We're now far down the road where the zoning bylaw that applies to this land was approved and is in full force effect. And as such, the county has determined that the subdivision is approved subject to conditions. Where council wants to have that influence is at the time of the zoning bylaw, when someone comes forward and says, hey, I've just bought this parcel. I'm bringing it into the settlement area, or it is in the settlement area. Now I want to zone it to actually implement. At this point, you're too far down the road to actually have an ability to meaningfully re-engage in that discussion. And I would just caution council that, as a mentor of mine put it, down zoning never goes well at the OLT. Even if you have them, you have the landowner on board.
Thanks, Ken.
Mayor Millen.
Oh, sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Sorry, just to add to what Ken says, the zoning bylaw for this was adopted in 2017. So it was put in a holding provision, but that minimum lot size was established back then. But you did make a change to all of the residential zonings to require an attached garage, and if they're going to build lot line to lot line. And as I said, I don't know if there are any homes built without an attached garage, but you did take that step. So that will ensure there is at least one parking space beside the home if they don't have an attached garage. And the minimum front yard is 7 meters, which is slightly over 20 some feet. So these homes, and again, I don't know what the setback is for all the other ones, but there should be room for, in front of that garage, at least one vehicle to be parked there. So, I mean, I think those steps that you did take not too long ago regarding attached garages and attached carports and requiring them will help the situation. Yeah, I agree with Ken that that the time to sort of set the lot size was maybe back in 2017. And just to add that 10 meters is narrow for a single, but for years we've seen semi-detached homes built on that, and the only difference would be they would be joined in the middle. So I think it can be made to work, and if the developer lays things out according to what the zoning is set, and I think they can make it work. But yeah, I must agree that people seem to have many more vehicles than they ever had. So even where I'm living right now, there's so many cars on the street. And that's in Barrie. There's, snow removal must be a challenge when it gets like it was last winter. So I understand what you're saying, but I just wanted to add that the zoning is quite old, but you have taken steps to improve the situation.
Thank you, Bill. Barb? Joan?
Oh, back to Ken. So you're saying, Ken, if we approve something in planning from years and years ago, no matter what the problem is, no matter what the issue is, it can't be changed, it can't be fixed, there are no provisions?
So through your worship, you could direct staff to pursue a zoning bylaw amendment. Speaking as a planner, subject to our code of conduct and having to evaluate such a request with provincial policy, the likely outcome would be that staff would not support that, as it would not be in alignment with provincial direction. Council would be the ultimate deciders. But as council is aware, when we discussed the changes to the OLT policy, in instances where staff recommend one course and council hypothetically in this case would take another, I would say, in my opinion, you'd be guaranteed an appeal to the OLT. In that situation, the planning staff would not be on council's side. We would be subpoenaed to testify based on our report. You would then have to acquire a planner and a lawyer to represent council's decision. And as my mentor wisely noted, down zonings like that never go well. I am not aware, to my knowledge, of an instance where OLT, particularly with where the landowner may not be on board with that idea, has ever gone through OLT and been approved. And I'll just add, in light of the changes to the OLT policy and how they operate, there may be the possibility that council would expose the township to the possibility that if appealed, they would seek their costs, which would come back to the taxpayer. And depending on the circumstances, it may also involve the county, because the county is given draft plan approval to the subdivision. And so there is an expectation that those conditions be achieved. It could also involve some outside action against the township as well, potentially. I'm not a lawyer. I would suggest legal advice on that side.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. I'm not saying that's what we're gonna do, but I also believe that there is always room for precedences. Thanks.
Barb, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And I just want to elaborate, because the bill did answer my question about when the zoning was approved based on provincial priorities and provincial direction. I do appreciate, by the way, the 14-meter lots. I think that is a little bit more manageable. And are there sidewalks on both sides of the street or just one?
Ken will know that. Or maybe Bill will.
Your worship, I don't recall the plan that Bill has included in his report doesn't show it, but
Bill, you're muted.
Yeah, I can't recall if it's on one side or both. I'm sorry. I'll see if I can pull the engineering plans here.
Martin?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Just hold on, Martin. Jim, do you have an answer to that? Sorry.
Morning, good people. I believe how the rest of the subdivision's been designed, that it's only on one side, sidewalk.
Typically, yeah. Thanks, Jim. Martin, please. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I guess Ken, or anybody could answer this, I guess. Since the 12 to 32 lots are bigger than what they're expecting now, and the company, the developer, bought these as is, legally, there's no way we can change them because it's a point of sale. They bought these lots. They're severed, I would assume, to show that. So is that what you mentioned other legal things for? Because if they bought these blocks, we'd be going against the bill of sale and a land transaction, wouldn't we?
through your worship, I think you're actually referring to lots 33 to 47, which are the ones that are the larger. The 12 to 32 are essentially the typical lots that are back. But to your comment, hypothetically, council can direct a zoning bylaw amendment because we're not party to this purchase and sale. But in doing so, like I illustrated in my response, staff would likely not be in a position to recommend that zoning bylaw be approved. And if council does proceed with that, I would bet that there would be an appeal, and I have not in my time in Ontario seen a down zoning go through OLT, even with developer support.
Okay, any other questions, concerns, comments? I think what is the minimum size, Ken, for the province? What do they mandate as the minimum size? I know they're proposing to change to something almost unbelievable, but currently,
So through your worship, the province actually doesn't regulate a minimum size at this point. They leave it to the municipality to do so. And so if you look at the R1 zone as a base, and sorry, I just had it and then I skipped over, so I've got to do. So the R1 zone, assuming it's not modified like it is in this case, the minimum lot area is 465 square meters, which is just over 5,000 square feet. And the minimum lot frontage is 12 meters, which is 40-ish feet. The province, however, is going to recommend a minimum size or regulate a minimum size far lower than that.
so I guess what I was going to say was, and I think it's worth repeating or mentioning, that there is a debate in the province about the loss of farmland. And the bigger you make the lots, the more farmland you're going to chew up to house those same number of people. In my mind, while 10 meters is not ideal from a homeowner or from a snow removal specifically, or any other measure possibly, it does reduce the amount of farmland that you need to house that same number of people. And I don't think that we can ignore that, being in a primarily agricultural community. And I know it hasn't been stated very much, but it is a very real thing. The reason farmland, or part of the reason why farmland is so expensive, is because they're not making anymore. So I just mentioned that just to kind of balance the debate a little bit as a farmer myself. Barb, did you have your hand up? Did you want something, please?
Just clarification, through you to Ken, you mentioned in our zoning bylaw, the minimum is 12 meters. You said that the 10-meter lots exceed our minimum requirement, but they're 10 meters.
So through your worship, this site was subject to a zoning bylaw amendment, which reduced the minimum size from the base down to 10.
Originally, and if we look back in 2000, when this original development phase 11 phases was originally approved, it had it laid out and the sizes at that time.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, concerns? I will just clarify at this point, we're just asking to receive the report. The bylaw will come later in the meeting. So, not seeing any further comments, I'll call the question. All those in favor to receive the report? Anyone opposed? That is carried. Okay, thank you, Ken. Public Works Department. Wait a minute, what time is it? 10 o'clock. Would anyone like a break? Do you want a break for 5 minutes? Yes, let's do that. We'll recess for 5 minutes. Come back 5 after 10. Thank you. All right, we are back in order. So the next report is from the Public Works Department. It's regarding a repair funding for a bridge that was damaged last fall. Someone care to move that? Barb, second by Martin. Thank you. John?
Thank you, through the chair. This report is just seeking council's approval to move $17,297.99 from the roads reserves to fund the shortfall of what we have received so far from intact public entities for repair to a bridge. It will be noted, I didn't have it in the report, but this is just to fund kind of in an interim. Intact is going after the trucking company's insurance for the full amount to get back to us, but as we all know, that can take years, so we just wanted to balance the books for this year.
Very good. Thank you, John. Any questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, sir. Legislative Services. The clerk has a report here regarding subsidized plot purchases in township cemeteries. And I think, is it Holly that's taking this? Yes. Someone care to move that, please? Joan, seconded by Jim. Thank you. Holly, please.
Thank you, Mayor Milne, through you. This report is just seeking council's approval to work with social service agencies when we're approached for plot subsidy in our cemeteries. We were recently contacted about the program and I didn't know it existed, so I reached out to the county. And the county purchases the plot and retains ownership. They cover to a maximum amount of money. It is lower than our standard plot purchase. So in this instance, we would have a variance of about $770 in cost that we would write off essentially, and it would come from our operating budget for the cemetery. So just happy to take questions if there are any.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Any questions from council? Joan, please.
It's not a question, it's just a comment. When I saw it, I was like, okay, because people have come to me before with this because I know that it's done in Brampton and Mississauga. So it was kind of like a welcome because there are a lot of people who really don't have life insurance and they can't afford to bury their loved ones, and getting that from social services and just adding on to it. The only thing is that they're not allowed to touch anything or change anything. It's just has to be standard. So it's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Barb?
Thank you. And thank you, Holly, for the report and for the follow-up. I did mention that this is a subsidy that the taxpayer would be bearing the amount. This isn't the province refunding the difference. This isn't the county. This is a subsidy borne by the property taxpayer. In a time when everyone is struggling to, and probably many are struggling to afford burial for their loved ones. Is it possible that that we can provide guidance to the county that it would need to be someone who has ties to Southgate? And there are strict criteria. I mean, there's the thresholds that the individuals requesting, the applicants have to meet. And so it's not a significant amount of requests so far. Could that come from the Eco Park Royalty Fund when we start noticing, more uptake from it? I'm just, as from a finance perspective, if that could be a consideration going forward.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Just in terms of who's allowed to have a plot in our cemetery, it ultimately, I would assume they have ties to the community, but because it's the county's program, we don't have a lot of say to say you have to be a resident or you have to, like, it could be maybe a family member or something. I would assume that most people would be local to the area if they were looking to use one of our township cemeteries, but unfortunately we don't have a whole lot of control because it's the county's program. I'll maybe let Taylor answer the question about using reserves, if that's good.
So I would have to check if there's any stipulations on what can be taken out and for what on that, but we could use that fund if desired by council.
Okay. Jason?
Just wondering if we have any idea of like how many we'd be looking at or in the past? Yeah. Is it a new program or is it? No, it's been around. Yeah.
Yeah.
The county.
The county. Sorry.
Yeah, through the mayor, it's been around for quite a while. We have not received any requests in the time that I've been here. I don't believe prior to that when Lindsay was managing the cemeteries as well. So I think they're fairly few and far between. I did reach out to some other municipalities, like lower tier municipalities, to kind of determine what they do, and they also don't receive a lot of them. And when they do, the same thing, the difference comes from the operating cost.
My recollection from years ago, sitting on the county social services committee, was that the county has about, at the most, a handful of these a year. Most of them are in Old Sound, but some are scattered amongst the county. Martin?
Yeah, thank you. And this is just for township owned, because I know we still have a couple of cemeteries that have their own boards. So eventually, with what's been going on in the past, those boards collapse, or so eventually we could be getting more township cemeteries. But as I said, the cost negligible, and if it's county. And the province does pay, I think, some costs for pauper grades and all that kind of stuff. So overall, it's a good thing, I think. So.
Barb?
I thought it was good.
You're asking permission to sneeze.
If I may through you.
Sure.
To Jason. One comment in there is that only one internment per plot. Most plots, other than in the like in the wall mausoleum type places, you can put multiple people, interned people, bodies, loved ones, if for cremations. And it seems to me that, I understand that an individual likely wouldn't want their loved one buried with, a stranger, but it seems to be a waste of the plot if, in this instance, we're providing a subsidy, the county is also providing a subsidy that then restricts the actual plot itself and prevents other, them from burying another loved one.
Yeah, so I guess if I may, the plots are for it, like one individual. The county would purchase a single plot in that instance. Typically in our own cemeteries with our bylaws, you could have one casket and up to 3 cremated urns. In this instance, because the county would retain ownership, their program only allows one interment. I suppose the argument could be made that it's not a lot of difference from other single plots that only have one casket. But I do understand kind of what you mean. And it's definitely something I can pass along to the county. I don't believe they're planning to change their program, but who I've been speaking to has been really good to work with. So it's definitely feedback I can provide as well.
Go ahead.
Yes, so when we're talking higher density, not to be glib about it, because it is very emotional when, your loved one passes. I think Lindsay's got her hand up as well. I think these are questions that are worth asking. Yes, the county has many years experience in this regard. So we'll look forward to some of those questions being answered more out of curiosity and how we can best manage and not take advantage, but if this plot is purchased through the subsidy, does that, and the county owns it, and another request comes in, I guess the question is, can the county then choose to open up that plot for a second cremation interment if it's part of the same family, I guess.
Lindsay?
I was just gonna add to the previous point that currently Maple Grove isn't strained for space. there is expansion room there. And as Counselor Shipston pointed out, we're likely to take on more cemeteries as the years go by. So I think it'd be a bit of a different conversation if we were strained for plot space in Maple Grove, but I do agree with your points, and it depends too, that it would be easier too if it was cremations. So that's definitely feedback that Holly can give the county.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Any notices of motion? Not seeing any. Consent agenda. Would anyone want any of those removed? I think I recall Joan,
Sorry,
which
item number 11.5.
11.5? Barb,
6.
11.6. Okay, be it resolved, the council received the consent agenda dated today, save and accept items 11.5, 11.6 for information. Some care to move. Jim, thank you. Seconded by Martin, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. So, Joan, we'll go to 11.5 first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 11.5, read Canada Post reduction for libraries. The proposed change to Bill C-15, the Canada Post Corporation Act, threaten the ability of libraries to ship books at reduced rates. As the chair of the library board, I think that is crucial for interlibrary loans program and the operation of rural facilities. The bill removes a clause in Canada Post legislation that provided reduced postage rates for books and other material that are mailed between libraries and also to users. This change will allow Canada Post to set its own rates without seeking federal approval, which could lead to increased shipping costs for the library and potentially force closure of maybe some of the rural facilities. So that will also cause potential impact for providing equitable access for people with disabilities and small children. So I am asking that we support this. Sorry. Whereas the library play a vital role in ensuring equitable access to the information, literature, education, and culture for all residents. So, yeah.
Okay, so your motion is to support that
Yes.
resolution? Okay, is there a seconder for that? Martin, thank you. Any further discussion? Martin?
Do you want me to read it? Yeah. So be it resolved that Southgate Council received the correspondence from the Township of Rundell, Lindock, and Raglan and the Township of Perry for information, and that council call on the federal government to maintain and protect reduced rate postal distribution rates for library materials, and that a copy of this and associated correspondence be forwarded to the Minister of Government, Transportation, Public Services, and Procurement, MP Alex Ruff, MPP Paul Vickers, and all Ontario municipalities.
Okay, Martin, you had a comment?
Yeah, just a comment, the OLS and the interlibrary loan, this is just another funding, like the actual library, what they get from the government, not just ours. It hasn't changed in 25 years. And then the OLS and they provided the interlibrary loan service between rural, and we got books from the Toronto libraries too. They got their funding cut where they had to get rid of their own service. And then that got down to the post. So again, they're trying, it's just a good thing to have for rural communities. So again, fully in support of it.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you, Martin. No,
Joan? Go-
thanks, Martin. I'm just saying for the Southgate Library, we do a lot of interloans for books that we don't have here and it is shipped to us, or we're shipping out to clients, readers, and also other things that we provide to a lot of residents with small children, and just the movement and the shipping and everything. This is going to cause an extra strain on our budget. Thank you.
Okay, anything, Martin?
And another point, it's amazing how one drop in the bucket to take it away can affect others, because when the time comes to ship, the staff have to go to the post office, taking them away from other duties that they used to do when the courier for OLS came around. So
Right.
any
Good
money
point.
saved.
Yep. Okay, call a question. All those in favor? That is carried. Going on to 11.6, the motion from the municipality of Wawa. Barb, you had want to speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor Milne, and through you, I did forward a resolution to Holly in advance. It is up on the screen. And I would like to support the municipality of Wawa's motion, which also supported the Township of Stone Mills regarding the proposed changes to the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and call on the province to ensure records related to government business remain accessible to the public, and urge the province to consult with the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario and the public before proceeding, and that it be circulated to the appropriate individuals. I would so move.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Martin, thank you. Any discussion, questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Great paper. Okay, general announcements. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Joan, please.
Thank you. This week highlights the importance of creating a National Accessibility Week from May 31st to June 6th. And this week's highlight the importance of creating a society where people with disability can participate in communities and workplace. So just to put it out there that the Township of Southgate does recognize National Accessibility Week.
Thank you, Joan. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Barb?
For our residents in Southgate, the Dundalk Lawn Bowling Club is having an open house on Saturday from 10 till 2 at the Lawn Bowling Greens at the Frank McIntyre Building in Memorial Park. I believe there is a rain date, but I can't remember what it is. It's the following, so that would be the 14th.
Something
Yep.
like that.
So hopefully we will see our residents out there to give it a roll.
Ha, ha, ha. Ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba. Anyone else have anything they'd like to share or think they can top that? Okay, thank you. Moving on to bylaws. We have one bylaw this morning, be it resolved, the following bylaws, bylaw 26053, signature homes phase 9 subdivision agreement approval. Be read a first, second, third time, finally pass, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, entered into the bylaw book. Someone care to move that? Barb will move that. Martin will second. Discussion. Barb.
I'll be asking for a recorded vote.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything? Madam Clerk, would you take the poll, please?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Milne, the recorded vote was called for bylaw 2026-053, which is the Signature Homes Phase 9 subdivision agreement approval. Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Councillor Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Milne,
In favor.
Councillor Singh Soares is absent. Councillor John,
No.
Councillor Rice,
No.
Deputy Mayor Delbreen,
In favor.
by a vote of 4 to 2, that's carried.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, we have a closed meeting today to deal with a couple matters. Be it resolved, the council proceed into closed session at 10:25 in order to address matters related to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and specifically a litigation update, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specific an HR matter, and that all those required remain in attendance. Someone care to move that, please? Jim will move that, second by Barb, thank you. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we'll proceed into closed session. Okay, we're back in open session and I can confirm that we only discussed those items that are listed on the closed session agenda. Confirming bylaws, move that please. Jim and Joan will second that. All those in favor? That is carried. One more motion, Jason and Jim, that we adjourn. All in favor?